via WebEx and physically in the Council Chamber, Strabane, on Thursday, the 16th of July 2025 at 4 p.m. So just the attendance. So Alderman McMorris.
Online, Karen.
Alderman Montgomery.
Here.
Alderman Wilkinson.
Online.
Councillor Boggs.
And Shaw, Karen.
Councillor Boyle.
Online.
Councillor Clark.
And Shaw.
Councillor Dinny. Councillor Duffy.
And Shaw.
Councillor Farrell. Councillor Harkin.
Here.
Councillor Heaney.
Shaw.
Councillor Hutton.
And Shaw, Karen.
Councillor McDade. Councillor Tierney. Okay, thank you, members.
Apologies, Councillor Farrell here.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Farrell. And I think Councillor Tierney, have you just joined as well?
Yeah, I'm here, Karen, yeah.
All right, we'll move on to our broadcasting statement then. I would like to remind everyone physically present at this meeting or in attendance remotely that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the use and the storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes, and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. A copy of the Council Privacy Notice may be found on the Council website. Item number 4, declarations of members' interest. Have we any now? Or we can take them as we go along.
Chair John Boyle, item 14.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Sorry, Councillor Duffy.
Item 9.
Councillor Hutton.
Item 9 as well.
Councillor Clark.
Item 9.
Perfect. Oh, Alderman Hussey.
Not a member of the committee, but items 15 and 16.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. All right. Agenda item number 5 is our deputation today, and we are receiving a presentation from Ireland Twigs, who is the project coordinator for Voice Matters Cooperation Ireland. So I will hand it over to you, and we will take any questions at the end if that's okay. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, my name is Ireland Twigs and I'm the project coordinator on Voice Matters, and I'm here on behalf of Cooperation Ireland. And a brief introduction of Cooperation Ireland for those who don't know. It's a non-profit here on the island of Ireland that does peace building and reconciliation, and we do a number of projects both in the community, youth, and a variety of other sectors. And so I'm just going to kind of delve into kind of a little bit of a brief overview of the Voice Matters project, what it accomplishes, what we're looking for, and kind of the history behind the project. So Voice Matters is a deliberative democracy project, and it is based on random selection or sortition. Cooperation Ireland developed this project 3 years ago. Well, 4 years ago now. We're going into our 4th year of delivery. And so this is based on a deliberative democracy principle. And what it does is we essentially randomly select citizens throughout Derry City. We bring them together on an issue that is selected upon community consultation. And then this is divided over 2 weekends, essentially where they come together over 3 days. And we provide monetary incentives for them to partake in this, so they are compensated for their time. And that stage is divided on 3 stages. So we have a learning stage, a deliberation stage, and a decision-making phase. Next slide, please. Thank you. And a little bit about the random selection, which I think is really important about this process, is so we work with a company called Sortition, who is the leading nonprofit in the sector. So this year alone, we've sent out 10,500 invitations to Derry addresses, and then respondents have the ability to respond to us, and Sortition demographically selects these participants. So we set out a range of demographic targets, just kind of stratify and pick 30 to 35 participants to take part in this this panel. And as they take part, it's based on age, gender, ethnicity, disability. We kind of choose these targets so then that the 30 to 35 people that we have partake in the panel are demographically representative of the wider dairy population. And I think this is really important because this gives us the chance to reach groups or people who are traditionally wouldn't partake in community initiatives or wouldn't typically be engaged in civic engagement. So this offers us a chance to get people who traditionally don't participate or may not feel that they have a say in community decision making, because you don't have to have any background. There's no prereqs to partake. Basically, you just have to live in the area and be willing to participate. So over the 3 years, we've seen really great participation levels. We've seen people who wouldn't traditionally be involved partake. And essentially, it's a really productive mechanism for us to make progress towards issues that traditionally may not be touched upon or may be difficult, because in those 3 days, we bring in a range of subject matter experts. So a huge part of this is the learning phase. So we, last year alone, brought in 9 or 10 subject matter experts who give presentations, who interact directly with these 30 to 35 participants. We have lightning rounds. And for example, last year, these subject matter experts ranged from academics to grassroots community groups to local academics. So it was a really great kind of for people to hear a wide range of perspectives. And then their dialogue that they partake in all comes from learning. So it's a really nicely set out weekend. And then on the last day that we do the decision making, all of the recommendations that the participants make are voted upon and prioritized all together. So everything is done through collective decision making and collective wisdom. Next slide, please. And then to just give a little bit of background. Go back to the background one. Yes, that one. Thank you. A little bit on background, just so that these are the 3 topics that we've completed, and year 4 is the one we'll be partaking in the spring. So these topics were all decided on upon community consultation, and at the end of each of these years, we've published a report, and those reports included the 10 most voted upon recommendations, in addition to for year 3, we did kind of what areas they wanted to prioritize. So with young people, they chose areas such as mental health, civic education, environment, that they thought were really important in prioritizing a future for young people. And then this year, we'll be doing on how we can make Londonderry a safer and more inclusive place for everyone. Next slide. And then this is just an overview of some of the long-term goals of the project, which include increased participation in local decision-making, increased confidence and trust, increased knowledge and understanding. After we've completed these last 3 years, we do a pre and project kind of survey. And what we see is that people after partaking in these panels tend to be more interested in civic education and local government initiatives and staying involved in local politics. And then in addition, on the other side, this is a really easy way for gathering collective wisdom, for bilateral consultation, and building trust in statutory bodies, because citizens feel more engaged in the political process and that they are making a direct say in what's being done and that they are able to prioritize the needs of their own community. And then just something really interesting that we're bringing into this year's panel for the first time, as we're introducing tech-enabled processes to enhance engagement, experience, bridge the digital divide, and uplift diverse community voices. A big obstacle I found leading last year is that humans tend to have limited capacity. There was a lot of really valuable information being collected in these small groups that we just didn't have the ability to note take, to synthesize, to analyze. So we've actually secured money this year to bring in tech-enabled processes, which means that we'll have live tech helping us to note take, to synthesize data, and helping us to move recommendations along. So essentially, we'll be able to cover a lot more ground in a very short span of time, which is really exciting for us, and exciting that we'll also be able to give community members access to certain education, give training, And in addition to this AI and tech, we're able to lead a skills workshop before the panel this year, in which not only will all 30 participants of the People's Panel be able to partake, but anyone who responds to the invitation will be invited to a skills workshop in which these citizens or participants can directly influence what the People's Panel will be discussing in April. So it'll give them the ability to be trained in some of the tech and then also influence what they think should be on the agenda, essentially, for building a safer and more inclusive dairy. So the beauty of this program is that from the very beginning, it's designed by citizens, it's led by citizens, and what comes out of it is citizens. And then Cooperation Ireland uses those recommendations to bring forward to councillors, to nonprofits, to anyone that's recognized to impact those overall recommendations. So next slide. These are just the dates for this upcoming year that we'll be doing every year. We do invite local councillors, local groups. We have kind of observation spots where anyone is allowed to be a part of the panel, to hear the conversations, to hear the subject matter experts. We also live stream these events so that there's direct engagement between the panel and the wider public, because essentially this should be putting citizens kind of at the heart of decision making. So even though we have a small pool of them, we want that wider engagement. Last slide. And that's kind of a quick overview. It can be sometimes hard to describe in one breath because it does a lot at once, this project. But it does really good. We've seen really high outcomes the past 3 years, and we're expecting really high engagement for year 4. I know I've spent a lot of time. We just launched year 3's report this autumn, and we've seen a lot of really good engagement and pick up between citizens and stakeholders. And what we're finding is that a lot of what citizens want, there is a lot of really great work being done. It's now we're trying to figure out how do we kind of bridge that gap. And then lastly, I'm essentially here because what I would really like is, you know, a lot of these panels that are delivered in other countries or in other cities, they tend to have a backing or a level of commitment from the council because essentially that's more legitimacy in this process. The biggest question I got at the end of last year was citizens asking, but what happens next? Is anyone going to listen to us? They feel really engaged. They feel really driven over the 3 days. And then after, that tends to disappear when they don't, you know, they don't hear anything about it or they don't have that level of commitment. So essentially I'm here looking for ways for us to kind of work together further on this project and see if there's a way for a partnership or even just a commitment so that citizens partaking in this know that those recommendations are landing on the right desks. But that's all for me. So thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Ireland. I'm just going to open it up for a few questions and then I'll come back to you. Is that okay? Councillor Hutton?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks very much, Ireland, for your presentation. On behalf of Sinn Féin, we welcome work like this being done across the district, across the region, in fact, because we all know how important community consultation is when addressing need in any discipline at all. What I would like to say is that I'm really glad to see that that has all still been done face to face, just through the line of work that I do. I think that sitting in a room with people, being real and it's not on a screen is really beneficial because you get the best out of them. And I know technology does work for others, but I really am glad to see that that's still done in a personable way because you do get the most out of people in relation to that. What I wanted to chat to you, maybe ask a few questions about. I know Cooperation Ireland in the past have done a lot of work with the Executive Office. I'm just interested to know how all of your data and all of your research is shared. Is there shared learning across the government departments? Is there shared learning across the community and voluntary sector? And do you work with the community and voluntary sector, and indeed council I was going to ask, but you're asking for that partnership now, in recruiting those people and hearing the voices of people that are and need within certain communities across the whole region and indeed this district as well, because sometimes they are the hard to reach people that you may not be getting access to. The hard to reach people are very hard to get in touch with, but I suppose through different avenues in the community sector, you would be able to reach them to get the data that you need. And I also wanted to ask you about That was the shared learning. Yeah, the funding. So when this research is all done and carried out, are there funding streams thereafter? Is there pots where the needs that you have found out are addressed? And if there is funding opportunities thereafter. And the third thing I was going to say was about council promoting this great work and having it on our platforms in relation to the consultation dates, and even the dates that was on that last screen about us promoting it through our streams on social media. But you've already covered that and asked for it in that last comment, Erden. Thank you very much. What else was I going to say? I've jotted things down here. Yes, just out of interest. So see the people that you actually bring into the room, how do you select them? Is it through all our organisations, or how do you randomly select them people? And that's all from me, but thank you so much.
Yes.
And it's great to know that this type of research is being done and it's being addressed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aisling. I know there was a lot of questions there, so do you want to answer them first before we move on?
I'll start with the random selection or recruitment era, since you ended there, and I really like speaking about that one. So we work directly through this partnership with the Sortition Foundation. So they are a UK-based organization. They're the only group that does this work at the time, and they have developed, it's way over my head, but a mathematical formula essentially that on how they do their stratification and random selection. So I give them zip codes. They access the Royal Mail database, and they are given wards, and they have a mathematical formula for how many houses need to receive addresses in order to receive the best diversity of 30 people in the room. So it's a very complicated process, but this year and last year we sent out 9,000 addresses. So 9,000 physical letters are mailed home. And this year it was over 10,000. And so they show up on doorsteps. We try to make it seem as legitimate as possible, because someone promising, we offer them 180 pounds is what they're given to partake. And so someone offering you that they don't tend to believe it. So we work really hard to make it seem real and promote it. And then Sortition, they can register. Sortition then directly speaks to every single person who registers individually. And so they gather information, they talk them through the process, they talk them through what it looks like. And then I think last year we maybe had 150 or so people who responded to the letter. And then Sortition uses their demographic data to break it down. So, should it be 50 and 48% male and female? Last year, because it was young people, Sortition intentionally skewed the data so that we had more young people, 18 to 35 in the room than other categories. We try to vary in, do people have disabilities? What ethnic groups are they from? And so then from those 150 respondents, pick a pool of 30 people that best demographically represent the broader Derry area. So a lot of work goes into that. And so and that's kind of the beauty of it as well, is that it's done through the Royal Mail database. So anyone can be a part of it. There's no requirements. We try to focus too a lot on education level and income level, and choosing people who may traditionally fall out of those norms to partake. And we meet any needs that are possible. If you have no literacy, we don't let that stop, if you have no formal background. So it really is an amazing process. And I'm really excited for the tech this year, because like you said, the in-person dialogue, the things that we're able to capture of the small groups taking places from people kind of from many walks of life is a really beautiful thing. And then I'll move on to the funding streams. Essentially, this is all very new for us. It took us, I think, a long time to build up a lot of trust in the program, in the community. The first few years we ran it, we were still getting a lot of questions, again, handing people money to partake. It doesn't always seem true. So this is kind of the first time we've really tried to pick up and really push the recommendations. For year 1 and 2, we did have some good traction. Some things were picked up, but year 3 is really the first year we've kind of started, hammering in. There is no money kind of after the recommendations come out. It's really just me being as insufferable as possible, and really trying to push that. But I think for the first time, the program has gained really good traction. We're having a lot of pickup. People are interested. We've had different government departments actually reach out to us because they want to know what's coming out of the consultations to influence programs coming out of it. So really this year, we're just really trying to focus on kind of getting the eyes and the awareness on it to bring that around. And then that kind of also answers a little bit of the shared learning question. This is a really local project for us right now. But I will say in the past year, when we have brought it up to people looking for funding for the project, we have gotten a lot more raised heads and people are interested. And I think this deliberative democratic wave is really taking off, especially across mainland Europe. So it's picked up a lot more traction. And a lot more people are interested, especially now that we have 3 years of data. And I'd be happy to send those reports to anyone interested. We have 3 years of concrete data that show that this works, that this has a positive impact on the community, and that it continues to be a good tool of engagement.
That's great. Thank you, Ireland. We have a few other questions online. I'll come to Councillor Farrell first.
Thank you, Chair, and on behalf of the SDLP Ireland, thanks for coming today, and a further thanks to all the panel members, all the contributors, everybody that's been involved in this process. And I've looked at the subject matter over the years, and for this year, in fact, so it ranges. But mental health, how we get local people more involved in decision making, how we create a better future for young people, and how we make this city and district more welcoming, more safe, and more inclusive. So those are key issues. They're important issues, and clearly it's a really, really worthwhile exercise because it empowers local people. It gauges the opinions, the views, the ideas of local people as well. So that should be celebrated and cherished. But I've got one question. You mentioned early about adopting a partnership approach with this council. So could you outline, in your opinion, what that could or should look like, please?
Yeah, I think in my eyes, eventually like a partnership to look like this is, well, first of all, I think a process like this should be implemented, even on a permanent basis, down the road. Whereas if there are issues that are really contentious or issues that are really big in the city, finding a way to gather consultation and using a process like this, I think long-term to have that built in to the committee or the council would be really important. But I think kind of in the short term and the immediate, I think a partnership is looking like almost just a level of commitment, I think, is just to start with for citizens, that there is, people are listening to them. I think the last 3 years, we were really lucky to have the mayor come and speak with us, or the deputy mayor, and they have attended. And I think that's brought really good morale to the people. But I think just having more of a commitment, not necessarily that, they're going to promise to implement all of the recommendations, but to listen, to read the recommendations, and I think partake more so in these processes and listen to them, show up on those 3 days that we have the events and engage with the citizens, engage as well with the subject matter experts, and then long-term embed a process like this into the council so that citizens continue to be actively engaged and feel that their voices are at the forefront.
Yeah, can I just ask a supplementary to the director, possibly? So Karen, what's council or officer view on the way forward here? Have we got a recommendation or a plan of action?
We've met previously in relation to last year's work with young people to look at the recommendations, to build links with our community development and children and young people's officer. So that's an ongoing conversation, and we would see that as something that we would carry forward. And obviously we did have attendance of both the deputy mayor and a council officer at last year's event. So that is something that we would like to build upon. And if there's an opportunity to increase that participation or engagement, I think we're collectively agreed, just in case we disagree, that is something that we would like to do. I think there's a value in a long-term conversation. We have a children and young people's programme. Back in November, if you recollect, we did consider the original report, and we agreed that we would do some work through that structure, looking, and it was maybe a sort of a suggestion that there would be a relationship between the people. So again, we are looking to target new participants in our children and young people's programme and in our delivery structures. And sometimes it is difficult to get to people who are not normally parts of, community structures or youth clubs or, school systems. So I think there's a synergy there going forward. So I think rather than a one-off action, it's something that is, a continuous process. So Ireland's only in her first year, I think. And this is the second programme, I suppose, but you weren't there at the outset of the programme. So we're starting to work through that, and we'll continue to do that. And we can bring back a report, I suppose, post-March. And hopefully the opportunity is there for members, generally speaking, from within this committee or within council, to participate and be engaged at your sessions as well. So hopefully that answers.
And one final supplementary. Ireland, are you okay with that? Is that something that you would embrace?
Yes.
Happy days.
You're great at sorting it out, aren't you, Councillor? Thank you. Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in, and welcome to the council today, Ireland, and thanks for coming in and sharing the work that you're involved in. I think, look, anything that aims to increase participation of our residents and citizens in shaping our society is to be welcomed. And I know over the last number of years, I know people who've participated in the various events that has been organised around mental health and decision making and so on. And I think people appreciate the opportunity to do that. And I think we need to do a lot more of it. So this is good work. It's also the case, in my opinion, that there's a lot of consultations that happen, as you probably know, carried out by government departments and so on. And often people feel these are box ticking exercises that people will spend a lot of time contributing to, participating in, going to meetings, filling out consultation documents and so on. And it leads absolutely nowhere in many, many cases. So that is also frustrating for people. And I think that that's probably built into some of your asks of the council today, because I think that hopefully this will give the work that you're doing, Voice Matters, a bit of a platform in terms of the broader public, with the goal of having the recommendations that come out of the engagement process actually influence what happens. And that means they have to be taken seriously by decision makers, NGOs and statutory bodies, i.e. government. Otherwise people will say, well, what is the point? So I think that we should promote I would propose that we promote the series of events that you have listed in your document, your presentation. But I think we should have you back after the process is concluded, when you actually have the recommendations, because the issue then is, what is this council and what are the people in this council going to do about actually advocating and making something of the recommendations? Because we have to give people who are participating, and yourself who's working in this, a sense that this is actually worthwhile. Because I find box ticking exercises by government departments very frustrating, to the point where sometimes I will tell people, I'm not sure that participation in a consultation type event is the best way to influence what government does, what statutory bodies do. The best way is to actually get out on the streets. And that might be the conclusion that many of the participants in Voice Matter actually reach. But it doesn't have to be one or the other at this point. I think people can do both. So what do you think about coming back when you actually have a set of proposals that has been fed into by people who participate, and talking to the council about what we're going to do with those recommendations, how we're going to actually make some of them a reality, or how we're going to try and pressure government to take them on board? Thank you, Chair.
That's great. Ireland, do you want to respond?
Yes, I would be really happy, more than happy to come back with those recommendations. And we're also working, we've been trying to kind of gather together a working group. So, I would love to bring back to any of those citizens we have some citizens who've worked together with us on all three of those panels. So definitely bringing that back and working together and also thinking long term about the partnership. I'd also like to make this panel as useful to the council, as possible. And if there's a topic that we can, use for the next Voice Matters panel, or use that to gather consultation. And I think kind of just using each other's resources and access to make this work for both the council, for the citizens, and for the local community. So I definitely would be eager to come back and continue working to mold this and make it the best to this council as possible.
That's great. Thank you very much, Ireland. We have Alderman Hussey next.
Thanks for the opportunity, Chair, and I'm a member of the committee. And thanks, Ireland, for the presentation. Can I say one of my pet hits is consultation with the usual suspects. And this is far from it. You're going beyond what I describe as the usual suspects. However, by the way, I totally agree with Councillor Harkin's remarks there at the end. Presentation to council. In fact, when I look at the 4 years' work, it would have been nice at the end of each year for the people involved to come in and make a presentation to council, or in the case of mental health, to make a presentation to the Western Trust or whoever. And I would totally support Sean in what he's saying there. I note through the 4 years' work, mental health in our area, people in the Northwest in year 2, people in the Northwest in year 3, and then we're looking at Londonderry this year. 9,000 letters sent out, communications. I think you said about 35 involved in the process. There's a considerable attrition rate there. So I'm just wondering how you get from 9,000. I know there won't be 9,000 replies, but how you get from 9,000 down to 35. And next you talked about postcodes, zip codes. What postcodes are used? Because quite often I find that the postcode I live in, BT81, postcode BT82, which is where we're at the moment, in Strabane, and indeed postcode BT78, may not be taken into consideration. So, is this the former Derry City area that's being considered? I would hope not. I hope you're going to tell me, sorry, you're wrong there. And the reason I'm asking that, I've never heard of it before. And I'm not aware of any folk in my area who are involved. Fair play if they are, that's absolutely fantastic. And another point would be, with regard to the whole programme, is the outcome focused on the information that's garnered, or is it focused on the young people and the process that they go through, or is it both? The invitation to local councillors, again, I haven't heard of the project before, but certainly if an invitation comes along to me, if I'm available, I call in and certainly be delighted to be there with it. So I suppose within that, it'd be interesting to know what the cohorts have been in each of the 3 previous years, what they will be. Well, you don't know yet, probably in the incoming year. And the bottom line there is, whose voice matters? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much for your questions. I'll start kind of reverse there. I'll start with the outcomes. So last year was the first year that I kind of coordinated and managed. I had a colleague who did the first 2 years. So last year was my first year doing the process. And I found from being at the panel that it was a little bit of both. It was both the individual, I think, journey that I saw participants go on. You know, we do an exercise in the beginning as, you know, why are you here? And sometimes you hear the grumble, like, I am just here for the money. And that is, we tell them that is a completely acceptable answer. You know, that is still matters. You should still be here. But then almost everyone by the end, you know, there's a completely different reason that they have decided to come. So I think seeing the individual journey of the 30 people and how close they become, and the way that they engage and healthily argue or disagree with one another is a really powerful thing. So I'd say that is a huge part of the process, focusing on those who are in the panel with us. And then also simultaneously the outcomes, because at the end of the day, those 30 people are representing a much larger portion of the population and different communities and different interests. So I'd say the outcome of the project, and that's why I find it so hard to explain, because I sometimes find it's doing so much at once. So it can be really hard to nail that down, but I would say it is the individual growth we see from the participants in the 30 room and how their perspectives change, in addition to the outcomes that come, and how do we then, you know, make a wider community change. And now moving on to the zip codes and how that is chosen. So based on funding and the way that the project was carried out, the first year or 2 years was very localized. It was in a very kind of small zip code, but I do know that we send, I don't know, I think this year we might have submitted 28 wards to sortition. So there are thousands upon thousands of addresses, and the way that their mathematical formula then breaks down, and I could be completely wrong, but it's something for every one participant they select. I think it's 4 household or something along those lines. So they choose that, and then they kind of choose the addresses that receive letters. It's a little bit above my head on the exact way, but I'd be happy to share with you their contact. We have a really good partnership with them, and the guy who leads our project has been leading it the last 4 years and has a wealth of knowledge. So I'd be happy to meet or you know, connect you with them to kind of see how that process happens. But every year we have widened the zip code. There's a lot of kind of theory and practice that goes into processes like this, because, you know, whole countries do processes like this, cities, and so choosing the number, it can be kind of difficult. But ultimately, every year we have broadened the scope, and this year is our widest kind of city swath that we've done just yet. So it's really exciting for us, but every year we've just kind of tried to trickle in the project a little bit more and gather more insights just to see if it was something that would work. And was there any other questions that I missed there?
Getting a slot involved.
So I tried to send last year, I tried to send out to who of kind of vast email to people we tried to share. But I think in the beginning we tried to, you know, make it really citizen led. So this is again a new step in the process in trying to involve the council, involve politicians, and make that step. I think the first few years we really just wanted to try on building that relationship with the community and building trust with them, that we were a trustworthy third party to handle this, and, you know, that we were going to do something. And so we feel really confidently now that we're at a place where we feel like we've built a really strong foundation, and we're really ready to kind of start that engagement back and forth with the wider council, and other groups involved. And so I welcome all of you, and we'll be sending letters through. And, you know, well, any of those events, we have the skills workshop or the panel or the report launch, we welcome anyone to kind of attend and engage with participants and ask questions, and be a part of that.
Chair, through you, thank you, Aaron. And don't forget those 3 postcodes that I mentioned there.
All right. We have Alderman McMorris online.
Thanks very much, Chair, for letting me in, and kind of thank you very much for your presentation. It was really insightful. I didn't really know much about the project until we got our meeting pack and you came along here today. It's just more comments more than questions that I have, but the 4 themes that you had for the 4 years, I think that they were really, really prevalent, and the things that's really, really prevalent in our society today, like youth and safety of our city, and we have an issue at the moment with safety of women and girls, so it's all very prevalent, and I really appreciate that there's been work that you are driving forward. I'd just like to make a comment in regards to the youth phase last year. Karen alluded to the role within council, and that's where I was planning on coming in and saying basically that we have a real focus and through yourselves at the minute in council about child rights, and this really, really complements the child rights themes that we're trying to do, and I feel as if the panel that you had last year in regard to that theme would be really, really complementary to what we're trying to do within the child rights, and I believe basically what Councillor Hussey was saying, that basically about the people actually coming in and presenting their work over the year, to us, what I mean. I think that would be really, really good to see, what I mean, and probably build a lot of confidences between the panel, and I think that would be really, really good for us to hear their voices, and I basically, I love the fact that this here was demographically chosen, and I think that's right to do. Councillor Harkin commented there about tick boxing exercises, and I totally agree with that. Do you know what I mean? Things should not be tick boxing exercises. You know what I mean? We should be basically, these are people who are a wealth of information within our society and not normally engaging with post policy making and different aspects of civic life, so it is really, really beneficial that we are demographically choosing the panel of people because they are the voices that's not always heard but have a wealth of information and knowledge that is beneficial for us to hear and to be progressing the thoughts and feelings and the needs that they put forward. But I'd just like to congratulate you on this initiative, and I really do feel that this initiative is something that council can basically promote the legacy of. Do you know what I mean? And it'll be interesting to see how the collaboration of work between council and yourselves going forward, and what that can achieve is really, really powerful and insightful. So thank you very much for everything, and appreciate your time coming here. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman McMorris. All right. I think that is all the questions then. I'm sure you're glad to hear, Ireland. But thank you so much for coming on. I just thought your selection was really interesting. And I love the theme for this year. And you obviously, from everyone speaking, you obviously have the backing from council. And we'll get a report back from Karen as well. But you have our commitment and on the streams and the platforms and things that we can help with. And we would love to know what comes out of it and hear what people think. So we would love another presentation if that's okay with you, Ireland. But thank you so much, and we'll not make you sit through the rest of the meeting. You can go, okay, but we will hopefully see you very soon. All right. Thank you so much, Ireland. Thanks. All right, item number 6 is chairperson's business, and I have 2 pieces today. First one is Councillor Heaney.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be quite brief, but it was really to ask a question. Obviously, as a local Fortside rep, I've been working quite closely with the Glen Development Initiative and their plans to put together a new community facility. So it had been my understanding that we were due to have a paper before us today to move the process forward to stage 4. Obviously, we don't, so it was really just to ask Karen, has there been any has there been progress in this, and when are we likely to see that paper just to move this project forward? Thanks, Chair.
We are in discussions with the architectural team about moving forward the process, and we hope to get a programme timeline just for that engagement. So we, at this stage, have been given the authority to proceed given the previously approved budget. So we will only bring a paper probably at the conclusion of that process.
Sorry, Chair, can I just ask, as a follow-up to that, just, well, how long do you think that process will take? Are we likely to see a paper by next month's H&C, or?
No, we will be instructing the design team to move forward with the stage 4 design process and the preparation for submission to planning. And obviously they will give us as a team their timeline in terms of the number of months, etc., that will take. So if you feel that you would like that fully clarified in a paper, I'm happy to bring that back to you, and I would be confident that we would have a paper for February. I've spoken to the group. And we intend to convene a project board meeting, I think the first week of February, just so there's full clarity of what that process involves and the timelines involved in that. We're also looking at and have a date in the diary for re-engagement with the Department for Communities in relation to match funding potential, and that's a process also that will have to be undertaken with the Department for Education. But content members, if that's what you agree, to bring back a paper to clarify that.
Thank you, Chair. That's great.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you, Councillor Heaney. All right. Second piece is Seamus. You have something for?
Thank you, Chair. Members, I just want to give you a quick update in relation to a funding bid, which has been submitted to SEUPB for a Peace Plus project. The project relates specifically to air quality and covers a number of work streams, including transport, solid fuel burning, and ammonia related to agriculture. The 6.5 million has been allocated to the call and a consortium led by European Regions Network for the Application of Communications Technology, which are based in Donegal. Councils and universities, both north and south, are part of this consortium, and a large part of the proposal relates to research, air quality monitoring and modelling, community engagement and awareness, and hopefully this will influence future policy making. And also, members, just to make you aware, the Chief Executive has issued a letter outlining this Council's support for the bid, and this committee will be kept appraised on the status of the application. Thank you, Chair.
That's great, Seamus. Thank you very much. All right. We'll move on to item number 7, and that is matters arising from the open minutes. I just have one matter arising first, which is HC 317/24. So the update on test purchase and exercises in relation to tobacco and nicotine inhaling products. So it's just to get a wee update from Seamus first. That's all right.
Thanks, Chair. I suppose relating from the actions of the last committee meeting, we undertook to liaise with the Public Health Agency in relation to the test purchase and exercises and the guidance that's associated with those exercises. Some queries or recommendations were put forward in relation to the time of day when the test purchase exercise should be carried out. And so we're liaising with the Public Health Agency, can we deviate from the guidance and the contract? What I can confirm is that we do intend carrying out further test purchase exercise between now and the end of March, and a report will be brought back in relation to the outcome of that, including any enforcement action taken. You'll be aware that a number of fixed penalties were issued in relation to the first exercise, and we're currently reviewing whether further enforcement action needs to be taken in relation to that as well. So I do intend bringing a report back sooner rather than later, but I just want to make sure that we have all the advice and guidance received from the Public Health Agency. Ideally, we'll maybe know more about the contract for next year as well. Thank you, Chair.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Seamus. Have we any other matters arising? No? Do we have a proposer? Councillor Duffy? Seconded Alderman Montgomery. Perfect. Item number 8 is matters rising from the open minutes of the Special Health and Community Committee on Wednesday, the 11th of December. Any matters arising? No. Proposer? Councillor Boggs. Seconder? Alderman Montgomery. Perfect. Okay, item number 9 is age-friendly consensual action plans, which include good relation theme. Barry is going to take us through this.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this is to seek your approval for age-friendly consensual action plans for the 24-25 financial year, and to seek your approval to reissue a revised letter of offer to Waterside Neighbourhood Partnership Board for the additional action plan that was presented to members in November. Members, the age-friendly coordinator has consulted with the chairs of each of the local growth partnerships, the strategy managers, and RAPID, and the 5 urban DAs, and that's helped shape the recommendations included in the age-friendly action plan. The action plan will focus on supporting older people, involves good relations theme, and you'll see elements of funding from TAO around that, and that's to support older people within the community. Members, following that consultation, each DA can access a maximum grant of £7,690.62, and that's broken down from funding from DFC and TAO, and that's to contribute to this overall action plan. Just to note, 3 of the areas chose to access reduced amounts, and you'll see that in the recommendation, and those are namely Strabane Town, Faughan and the Spurn areas. So in terms of recommendations, members, that you note the contents report and approve the action plans for all of our 8 local growth partnership areas, and you'll see for the amounts below in section 5.1. And secondly, that members approve the reissue of the letter of offer to Waterside Neighbourhood Partnership Board, £4,000, following further clarification of the lead partner. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Barry. Councillor Clark.
Yep, thank you, Caitlin, for letting me in. This is quite close to my heart here because I'm a development worker down in GSAP, so I manage a few of our older people's programs. And over the past few years, you notice more social exclusion and older people even quite sedentary lifestyles. So, and this is all comes on the back of the cost of living crisis. So a lot of them are either eating or heating, literally. So this should go a long way to tackling that. We've lovely warm centres in our area, and we have very highly trained staff that can deliver on this. So I just want to welcome this. It's going to go a long way to tackling a lot of issues. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Barry, for the report. Just on behalf of the SDLP, we want to welcome the report and just communicate the fact that we support the recommendations. And I'd also like to note that I'm a member of the Ballyrnet Local Growth Partnership, and I would like to declare an interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Councillor Harkin.
And thanks, Barry, for the report. And I have no problem supporting the distribution of the funding to organisations across the district. Look, this is about helping older people. I think that older people right now are having a very difficult time. It's obviously funded by the Executive Office and funded by the DFC, and for me, Stormont is actually, rather than helping people, older people in particular right now, it's actually made things a lot worse. If you just look at the example of the taking away the winter fuel payment, that has made a lot of older people's lives more difficult this winter. The £100 mitigation, has anybody received that yet? It's not even clear. So that's one. You look at the state of our hospitals and the experience of a lot of older people who are probably terrified of being sick and having to go to the hospital, given what they're experiencing and given the reports that we're seeing, about corridor care and everything else. I mean, it's our government is letting people down, letting older people down in particular. So the goals of this funding for community organisations across the district are vital. Signposting people to help, signposting people to getting information about accessing help, working on people's physical health, working on combating isolation and loneliness, and working to help people on their mental health. I think that this is a lot to ask community organisations to do, given that we know that they're underfunded themselves. The workers themselves are not paid what they deserve to be paid. I think while we're happy to see this money go out, the actions of the government are actually making the work of community organisations whose goal and aim is to help people much more difficult. And to do that properly, they would need a lot more money and a lot more support from the Executive Office and from the Department for Communities. But I'm sure they'll put this money to as best use as they can. So we have no problem supporting this recommendation. Thanks, Chair.
All right, Councillor Harkin. Alderman McMorris.
Thank you, Chair. And just to put on record the support of the DUP for the recommendations within the report. We all know the beneficial work that the community sector does in offering our older population. And we know that sometimes like a luncheon club might be the only warm meal they have that day. So we're just delighted to put our name to the recommendation. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman McMorris. And Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair, and like others, just to welcome the spread of the programme. I think it's absolutely vital that happens. But just one clarification. What's the definition of older people? I've seen somewhere 50 plus, which I would totally disagree with. And to me, older people should be 60 plus. Maybe Councillor Clark knows more than I do about the definition of older people. But what is the definition? As I say, I've seen 50 plus in places. I totally disagree with it. But 60 plus, yes.
But I've just hit 50 myself, Derek, so I don't class myself as an older person. So
For yourself, Chair, I've read studies and 50 is what's been recognised as older people.
And some publications will also suggest 40. So there you go.
But there is the phrase as well, aged population. So when you hit 50, you're classed as aging. So I don't know whether.
All right, thank you, Alderman Hussey. Councillor Boggs.
Just very briefly, Chair, just in relation to some of the previous comments, I just think it's someone could be read and inferred that the community and voluntary sector aren't fit to deal with some of the work that they're doing. I don't think that's the right message to send from any chamber, and particularly not this one. The community voluntary sector right across the city and district do absolutely fantastic work to support people of all ages and of all vulnerabilities. And that's needed regardless of any position coming from stormont departments or elsewhere. I think we ought to remember that in instances like this, when we are talking about supporting older people, it is a British government that still holds the purse strings for this place and who have us hamstrung in relation to what we were able to do. But like everybody has said, interventions like this are welcome and they're absolutely needed. And we in Sinn Féin fully support the community and voluntary sector and still being able to do the best of their work and ensuring that they support the people that need the support right across their communities and definitely within the city and district.
Thank you, Councillor Boggs. So just to go back there, Councillor Kirk, did you propose? Yes, and seconded by, was it Councillor Farrell?
Yeah, I'm happy to second, Chair.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Farrell. All right, item number 10 is a report on full dispersal funding to Derry City and Strabane District Council area to support asylum seekers, and that is Barry again.
Thank you, Chair. Members, just to update you on the full dispersal funding allocation from TO and to seek your approval for the proposed open call process for the funding for asylum support for the 24-25 financial year. Members, you'll recall on June the 7th, TO informed councils were in position to move ahead with the allocation of the refugee integration fund in the councils for this financial year. And this fund was to support refugees only. DFPF Limited was appointed to deliver the service. This is ongoing and will conclude on the 31st of March 2025. On the 11th of November, TO informed councils that we're now able to move ahead with the allocation of the dispersal fund to councils, and the award was £47,502. The funding has been released by the Home Office to support projects that will support asylum seeker integration. A proposal was submitted to TEO outlining council's approach to undertake an open call award for by 11,000 grants to organisations within the council area providing support to asylum seekers. The remaining balance was allocated for marketing and system development to facilitate the open call. This proposal was submitted to TEO and subsequently approved. So you'll see within the finance section, members, the breakdown around the funding around this. So in terms of the recommendations, that you note the members note the content of the report and approve the acceptance of the funding from TEO 55,583, and the members approve the proposed open call process for the full dispersal funding for asylum support of 47,502. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Barry. Do we have a proposer? Proposed Councillor Hutton. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Boggs. Okay. Rightio. We'll move on to item number 11, and that is Be Active, a physical activity, wellbeing and sports strategy 2024-28, and that is Barry again.
Thank you, Chair and members. This is to seek your approval for the formal adoption of the Be Active Physical Activity, Wellbeing and Sports Strategy for the council area. The development of this strategy, as you're aware, is to provide a clear statement of council's aims, objectives and priorities for the next 5 years. The final draft of the strategy has now been completed and has undergone an integrated impact assessment. The vision for the strategy is more people, more active, more often in Derry City and Strabane District. And members, to achieve this vision, there are 3 key objectives identified. Encourage everyone of all ages and abilities to get involved in the council's programme of sporting and physical activity opportunities. Continue to support the district sports clubs and activity providers and engaging with local communities to promote their sport and physical activity opportunities. And finally, further to develop partnership work and promotion and delivery of sport and physical activity. You will see in section 3.4, there are 4 key strategic themes. Be active, relating to sports clubs, be active every day, be active together, and be active spreading the word. So members, in terms of the recommendation, that members approve and endorse the strategy for the council area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Barry. Councillor Boggs.
Very good, Ciara, and thanks, Barry, for the report, and happy to propose the report and also declare an interest, just to be sure, as a member of some of the groups that are listed within the report as well. I suppose it's important, obviously, they have increased participation, and I know we've talked before about the increases in our leisure usage and all the rest, which is great. But it's also good to see that there's a recognition that we still have some way to go, particularly after COVID, which is talked about in the report, about getting those who were involved in sport back in, or those who have never been, to get involved for the first time. And I think the strategy also recognises the fact that, you know, being involved in sport or leisure facilities is much more than just claiming to be an athlete or trying to be an athlete. It is about trying to get out more in the social aspect. And I know, reading some of the statements from people, particularly, you know, the Strabane Special Olympics Club, I'm glad to see them included because they do fantastic work, and with a particular cohort within our city and district. But it's the social aspect and the getting out and meeting new people and challenging yourself and working on from that. I suppose there is a part in there in relation to the schools aspect. I think that's really important, about how we kind of create a culture within young people to progress then through sports and leisure. But what is raised within the report about EA talking about wanting, you know, communities to make more use of their own school facilities, it had been raised with me before the end of the year in relation to our own facilities in council, and how you walk past facilities at certain times of the day, week in, week out, and they aren't being used because the user groups that use them in the evenings don't use them during the day. And whether or not there is a possibility, and I suppose I'm just looking for an assessment at the moment rather than asking for us to go away and explore it, but has it ever been looked at about how we could maybe open up our own facilities at key times where we know they aren't going to be used? I'm thinking of Melvin 3G pitch or the arena pitch, and I know there's issues then about overuse of pitches and all the rest, but not just those types of facilities, but all council leisure facilities. If there are gaps where we're not using them repeatedly and historically, is there an onus on us to go out and see who could potentially make use of them, so that we're playing our part, just in a similar way that EAA is quoted within the report of wanting communities to use their facilities as well? Thank you.
I suppose, Councillor Boggs, just to answer that, there's a conversation ongoing as we prepare for the investment in the capital leisure facilities around the addressing an activity, specifically looking at the underrepresented groups. And we know that those are defined and white papers have been presented in relation to those. But I suppose thirdly, in a new strand, and we've been discussing this with the Sports Council, is that partnership piece of working, particularly around health intervention. As you know, we're also engaged in a wider piece of work around a whole systems approach to obesity. And there have been a number of presentations to this committee around that. So we're, at the stage of looking at building action plans and informing the future development of a leisure strategy that looks to take on board some of the issues that you raise. In a short-term context, the Sports Council have given us, and it's lovely to have funding of 30,000 awarded, and we're grateful to the Sports Council for that, but we have to expend it before March. So we intend to focus that expenditure on trying to pilot or kickstart some of those types of activities, underrepresented groups, the inactive, people where health interventions, and other sports that we might want to grow, because we have some, extremely proactive clubs who have very developed member bases, but there are other types of activities where perhaps maybe participation has dipped, or where there's new opportunities to grow things like your pickleball, for example, or whatever as alternatives. So hopefully that programme will focus on that going forward. And Barry will answer the next question.
Through yourself, Chair, we have started programs, particularly in our sports halls. Most of our sports halls lie idle during the day. So our physical activity team, previously the Macmillan coordinator, we are running sessions like that over 50s clubs, Alderman Hussey, in terms of older people. So we do that. Pickleball and all of that has become very, very popular. So that does happen when halls are idle. The difficulty when you talk about 3G and pitches, the demographic of people that use those are normally school age, university age, or working, and they don't really get access during the day. We do have certain facilities that people are permitted to walk around and things like that. So it is something that we engage in on an ongoing basis to see, can we get more people in, but it's a work in progress. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Who's next? Councillor Farrell.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Barry, for the report. On behalf of the SDLP, we welcome the report, we welcome the new strategy, and we support the recommendation, which is going to promote healthier and more active lifestyles, and obviously the subsequent benefits to better mental and physical health. So fully support the report, and we hope it's implemented in full. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Are you content to second?
That's fine, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Next, I have Alderman Hussey.
Thanks for the opportunity, Chair. Councillor Boggs has touched on an extremely important point. It's the utilisation of facilities, and I'm not just talking about council facilities that are there in the community, but only used at certain sections and by certain people. And you mentioned schools, and that's a prime one. And perhaps not just sports pitches, etc., but many schools, for example, have play areas associated with the school, but they won't allow the community in then, in the evenings to utilise those. Some do. For example, I suppose Newton Street would be a good example, where we have the Mugga there, which is part of the school facility. But there are other areas I can think of, for example, Kiln, where the school has an excellent play area in the grounds, with fencing, where the school can use it during the school time, and then that gate can be closed, and the youngsters who are then out of school can come in and use the facility. I know there are difficulties with boards of governors and responsibilities, etc., but surely to goodness more could be done to use the facilities that are there, not necessarily council facilities, but many other organisations who have those facilities. Should it be the GAA, the local football club, whatever it is, that they would utilise the facilities more widely.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Councillor Harkin, online.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Barry, for the report. And look, I very much support our council having an ambitious physical activity strategy, and that's what this certainly is. And I think, you know, the benefits of exercise, participation in sports, participation in teams, I think are very well documented, from, you know, teaching people about collaboration, breaking isolation, how it impacts your mental health, but also how it is good for your overall physical health, which is absolutely critical. And you know, participation in sports and exercise can really influence, can prevent you know, people from having serious illnesses, which our health system definitely needs. That's very much part of this as well. And you look at, I just reading the report, the headline is "Why Bother?" And I think for our district, why it's important we have a very aggressive and ambitious strategy around this. As people will know, our men in the district can expect to live a year, or women can expect to live a year less than the average for life expectancy across the north, and it's more or less the same for men. And in the deprived areas across our district, that goes up to 6 years below the average for men, and 3 years below the average for women. So, like, we need a very ambitious strategy that seeks to involve more and more people in it and encourage people to participate in sports and exercise. And another part of the report that's included in it that I think should be a headline for us: double the number of men participate in sports teams compared to women, and it's triple when it comes to coaches. So I think we have to be looking to address that imbalance as well. I think that has to be central to our the work that we're doing, and we need to keep a focus on that. But very, very happy to endorse the recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Alderman McMorris.
Thank you, Chair, and just to put on record our support for this physical activity strategy. We know how important. I'm probably not the best person to speak on it because I don't prioritise enough time towards it myself, but we do support it, and we support elements within it. It's good that we're going out on this here, and basically I agree with Sean there just about the inclusion of promoting more for women and disabilities in regards to the sports. So, and I know the sports team within council do a very good job, and I'm sure they're looking at all them aspects. But yeah, just to put on record support. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman McMorris. So we had proposed by Councillor Boggs, seconded by Councillor Farrell. Item number 12 then is Home Safety Service, and that is Seamus.
Members, the report relates to a letter of offer from the Public Health Agency in relation to funding the Home Safety Service beyond March 2025. By way of background, the Home Safety Service has been provided in this council area since 2003, and the main aim is to reduce accidents in the home and focus mainly on under 5s and over 65s. The Public Health Agency has confirmed its commitment to continue funding the service next year. However, the level of funding has not been confirmed, and the recommendations members accept the letter of offer issued by the Public Health Agency to extend the service beyond March 25.
Thank you, Seamus. Councillor Hutton.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Seamus, for the report. It's just to propose a recommendation. I think that the role of the Home Safety Officer plays a vital part in prevention, particularly with the older people in their falls. I do know that the Home Safety Officer is out in the community sector delivering through the Stepping On programme and assisting the Sure Starts teams as well in relation to making home safe for babies. So happy to propose a recommendation and continue with that vital work.
Thank you, Councillor Hutton. Councillor Harkin.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Seamus, for the report. I mean, look, I'm glad that the Public Health Agency is committing to continue to fund this, because I read that there are 17,000 hospital admissions as a result of accidents in the home. And obviously, the children under 5, as the report says, and people over the age of 65 tend to be disproportionately represented in that. So I'm curious if we have a breakdown for kind of how many people in our district would have been included in the total number of admissions, and obviously again for our health service to work properly and to keep people healthy and to keep people alive, prevention is absolutely key. So the work of the home safety service is critical to doing that. If we can keep more people healthy, avoid accidents in the home, and it can have an impact on our health service as well. Which is why my question is, it's a bit worrying when the PHA in the report says they're not sure about funding for next year, and we know that the Department for Health is under all sorts of pressures in terms of funding. But surely this is important because it's part of prevention. It will actually save money in the long run, keep people alive, as the report or the document that comes along with it outlines, and it was written quite a while ago. So it seems to me this will need to be updated as well. Just about the objectives about for raising awareness, support and training, targeting groups that are disproportionately represented, and a lot of that has to do with economic background. I mean, obviously, people in deprived areas are disproportionately impacted by this as well. People with disabilities, and capturing the information as well. Those are all important strategic objectives for the actual home safety work. But Seamus, can you give us any insight into how the department is thinking about this, or the PHA is thinking about this? Because we're looking at this as something important. To take this away or to lose funding for it would seem to be something that would be a backward step in terms of assisting the health service with the huge waiting lists and overcapacity that it's facing right now.
Through you, Chair, yeah, Councillor Harkin, I suppose the caveat within the letter is probably similar to what we received last year, which gives me some hope that we will receive funding. And I would say the discussions that are ongoing with the Public Health Agency and the other councils are positive in relation to the strategy and looking at the best way forward. So I would be hopeful that the fund will continue, but I just can't confirm that until we get confirmation in writing.
Thank you, Seamus. Councillor Harkin, are you content to second?
Yeah, I'm happy to second. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. All right. Right, we'll move on to open for information then, and we'll just run through them. So just if there's any comments on any of them as we go. Item number 13. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to comment on item 13, I believe it is, regarding the funding now that is coming forward for the Violence Against Women and Girls strategy. I think that as a council, we absolutely need to be welcoming that. I think that there's a lot contained within the report that is really positive. There's a lot in the strategy that I look forward to seeing delivered. We absolutely need to be challenging attitudes, behaviour and culture. We have seen how violence against women and girls has been allowed to thrive because of systemic inequalities for women and girls. And I think that this is the beginnings of how we start to address that. There's real practical steps within the report and working with the community and voluntary sector in trying to do that. Education is going to be absolutely key. We as a council area have prioritised ending violence against women and girls as a council and as part of our PCSP. And I think that that is something that really needs to be welcomed. The Mayor is having a meeting on Monday night, which I would encourage people to attend. And I hope that the PCSP continues with the meeting that we have planned as well regarding holding us all to account on what we can be doing to ensure the safety of women and girls in this council area. So completely welcome that report. Thank you, Chair.
100%. Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Harkin.
Yeah, Chair, thank you for letting me in. Look, I think that the ending violence against women and girls ending gender-based violence, I think is an absolutely central issue for this council. And I think it's a good thing that we have this report coming in and that it has a set of goals in terms of raising awareness, challenging attitudes, education, teaching people about healthy relationships and respectful relationships, and ensuring that people feel safe. But look, the headline figures look large in the sense that there's 1 million mentioned here and 1 million mentioned there, but when it's actually broken down, it isn't a lot of money that is coming into the council. I'm sure it'll all be very well utilised, but given the importance of this issue, I feel like the executive office and the executive needs to be coming in with larger amounts of money, because that also is a measure of how central and how serious it seemed to be taken. So there's been a big spotlight on violence against women, and which has been very welcomed. But again, we have a long way to go before we are able to say that things are actually improving. Again, I'm glad to see that and I think a lot of people are welcoming the fact that there's going to be a meeting on Monday night, and there's other meetings being held, and there's a lot of discussions being held. But I think that we have to make sure that the executive is responding to this on the scale, including the financial scale that is needed, so that the work on the ground can actually be done. And so while it's good to see this coming in, but this is very much, from what I heard from people and people in groups, it's very much this is an initial response and it needs to go a lot further. Thank you, Chair.
Alderman McMorris.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in, and I'm just going to keep this brief. I also welcome this. This is something that's really, really prevalent at the moment, and I know there's a lot more emphasis needs to be done and more money coming forward, but we need to welcome the money that is there in order to enhance initiatives to keep women and girls safe in our society. As somebody who speaking to people who has actually been victims of this here in our local community, we had a female assaulted over the festive period, and this cannot be accepted. So I welcome any steps that our council or any statutory agencies can give forward in order to address this problem within our society. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman McMorris. Okay, item number 14. No. 15. 16. 17. 18. And 19. Okay, do I have a proposer and seconder on to confidential? Proposed Councillor Boggs, seconded Councillor Hutton.